All right, we begin tonight on our six pack with number one Loki episode for the Nexus event. On Lamentus 1, Sylvie tells Loki she has escaped. She escaped from being kidnapped by the TVA as a child. Loki and Sylvie form a strange romantic bond, creating a unique branch timeline that draws the attention of the TVA and allows for them to be rescued from Lamentus before it is destroyed. They're both arrested, and Mobius leaves Loki in a time loop from his past with Lady Sif, where she repeatedly assaults him for cutting her hair. Mobius later interrogates Loki, who tells him that they are all variants who were taken from previous lives. Although he originally does not believe him, Mobius steals Ravenna Renslayer's time pad and confirms that Ravenna pruned C20, Hunter C20, for revealing she knows she was taken from a previous life. In response to having the time pad stolen, Ravenna has Mobius pruned himself. Meanwhile, Hunter B15 has Sylvie show her past truth, learning she is also a stolen from a previous life. Ravenna has Loki and Sylvie presented to the Timekeepers, but B15 helps free them. The pair take down Ravenna and the rest of the Minutemen. They cut one of the Timekeepers' heads off, revealing they are robots in a very Wizard of Oz type scheme. Loki is about to explain why he believes the Nexus event occurred on Lamentus, but Ravenna regains her senses and prunes Loki, resetting his existence. Sylvie takes down Ravenna and demands answers. In a mid-credits scene, we see Loki, recently pruned, arrived in an unknown location and asked if he is dead. He is told not yet by four other Lokis, including a lizard Loki. What did you think about this episode?
I thought this was the best episode so far. I really liked it. I liked all the I like how they were making fun of him for like, hey, this is like the female version of you. You're such a narcissist that you I thought that was funny. Yeah, I thought that was funny. I thought the fact that we still have two more episodes after this, so we still have like a decent amount of storyline to go, and yet we got so much. We got the Timekeepers as like robots, and they don't even really exist. And now we're kind of at this thing where like we don't even know who's at the helm, who's controlling this. People kind of know, everybody's kind of at this thing where nobody knows what the hell's going on now because it's all exploded. And we have two episodes, presumably around, probably like an hour and a half. So, not a Marvel length movie, but a movie, a small length movie left of information and stuff to happen. And I just thought this was like, had a good amount of, action with the, hand-to-hand combat, but then there was like the whatever romance thing you want to take that as. There's still it was nice to have Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston back together, doing their thing for a little bit, not thrown in your face. So I thought beginning to end, and then have the Loki thing at the end, including the lizard Loki, which was just cracked me up. I thought that was just beginning to end, like best episode with like the most at stake. We talked about that with Bad Batch, in prior episodes, and we'll talk about that tonight too, going forward. It's like, I like it when there's more, feels like there's more at stake. And this episode seems to be like, there's a ton at stake now. Loki's been, sent off to this other world. It makes you wonder if we'll catch other people that have been sent off in this other world now, if that's what happens when you get pruned. It feels like there's a lot to happen. And I also feel like we don't know anything now. I think a lot of us thought we kind of had an idea, and now we have no idea. So I like that. What do you think?
I didn't really care for this episode.
Really?
I thought it was boring for most of the episode. I just thought I'm starting to think between Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now to a certain extent Loki, that just series aren't a good idea for Marvel. With established characters, I think that it's a good idea maybe moving forward with some of these new characters like Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, whatever. It gets us an opportunity to get acclimated to them in a different way. But yeah, I was bored through a lot of this episode. There was like the whole thing where they pruned Mobius was like so shocking and out of nowhere, but at the same time they spent no time dealing with it afterwards, like dealing with the fallout. I think that there was, they were looking for shock value with he just suddenly disappears. Yeah. But then to not even really talk about it the rest of the episode after, Loki has this moment with him where he's like, would you take the word of a friend? Because now they're like friends, and there's this,
Right.
they have this moment, and then he's gone, and then there's no payoff for it. I also didn't like the inclusion of the mid-credit scene at all, because I think it just completely removes all tension. Because going into next week with, where is Loki? Is he dead? Is he gone? Is this now her story? I just felt it was unnecessary. It would have made more sense to me to leave it as a cliffhanger and that be the opening to the next episode rather than do the end credit scene.
I think my thing on that is, we know he isn't dead in this part of the Marvel universe. In the timeline, we actually know he isn't. So I don't think there is any like, oh, is he dead? I don't, we knew he wasn't, because,
right.
I think that's kind of where it is. Like, if this was, let's say, before Endgame, or whatever, when he, is actually, killed by Thanos, maybe there's like that kind of thing. But since we know he comes back and is in Endgame or whatever, in Infinity War, I'm sorry. That's the thing where I'm like, I think they just kind of did that as like, he's not dead. Here is where we're at, and we have this lizard Loki and the 3 other Lokis. I'm surprised you say you were like bored through it. Like, I was like totally captivated. A lot of times, I mean, not a lot of times, but with any of these shows, I like can definitely like feel like I can have my phone up and going through it. It's like maybe the first 10 minutes. This one I was like on my phone, but I was definitely interested in the storyline. I think mostly because now that everyone kind of understands that they were not born into this, I find that interesting to me. And maybe that's just where I'm at, like a storyline. And maybe I just wanted more of a storyline going forward with this, because it didn't really feel like there was anything for a while.
Well, that was the
and
thing
now,
with that was, it was like, okay, that was the sticking point, but Mobius learns that he kind of figures it out, and then Hunter B-15 takes Sylvie back to the like weird Walmart thing from the one episode, second episode, I think, and show me that but then you don't see it, so there's no, like, you don't hit any of the emotional beats of, it's not like we get to see Hunter B-15 and her name's actually Beth and she's got 2 kids, you know what I mean? So there's no emotional hit behind that. It's just, oh, well, that, I guess that sucks for her, you know what I mean? But there isn't any that, like, I think that was the thing, was they built up to this by telling us that, and like we talked about last week, it was almost a throwaway line. It happened so quick, and then we knew coming into this episode that we were going to get that addressed, and then it just really wasn't. In certain ways, we found out that was true, but we don't necessarily know what the ramifications of that are, and that's what I was kind of looking for. And I don't know that we're going to get that, because next week's episode is going to clearly be dealing with, Sylvie's going to be interrogating what's her name, Ravenna Renslayer, and then Loki's going to be trying to figure out how to get off, Loki land, as I'm going to call it. I just, yeah. I mean,
do you think it's
Loki
land, or do you think it's? I mean, because that's the thing. This is the first time we see someone, get,
ding frozen, ding frozen.
Yeah, that's the oven preheating for dinner. So I gotta, but this is the first time we see someone get, I always say tased because it's funnier for me than pruned, but it's the first time we see someone get pruned and actually see what happens. Like,
right.
You're not actually killed is what it looks like. I mean, are you taken to a land of your alternate selves, or is it all one land? So I think that's still interesting. And we still have 2 episodes left. Like I said, we still have like a short movie, a regular comedy length movie left to make things work out. So I'm still very much intrigued. I still like the show. It has 2 episodes, so we won't grade any of these shows or I won't grade this until it's done, of course.
Right.
But I'm still really enjoying it, and I will say that it is funny, because when I first heard about this show, I was like, I like Loki fine, but I knew a lot of people love Loki and were like so in on it, and the more I talk to them, they're still super in on it. But like, I like him more now than I did in the actual movies too. Like, I like Tom Hiddleston just as an actor. I think is more, not necessarily as Loki, but I just like the way he is like presented in this, and his facial expressions are really good. If you pay attention to that, I just think he is kind of in this weird thing where he's like Tom Hiddleston, this like trained British actor as Loki in these things, and this is what he has decided to do, and he's very good at acting. You might not see it all the time, but if you just watch him, the little things, which is what I was trying to do with these last 2 episodes with him, he's good. He's like, his reactions and stuff to things that happen around him are pretty funny. So if you're listening, and you just check that out, he has so many good facial reactions. So does and I wonder, I have a feeling we're gonna get Mobius back too. I think we will.
I would hope so. I'll be real pissed if they don't explore that at all. You know what I
feel
mean?
like they have
he's just gone now. The end.
I feel like, yeah. I mean, it's a really famous person playing a character that, they had to know people were going to like.
Yeah. I can't imagine they brought him in for 3 episodes because he wasn't in the third one at all.
Right.
Maybe like a minute,
Yeah.
But
I feel like that's going to be addressed, and, and that rapport is just, whether you think it's too much or whatever, it is still a rapport between two characters. So
their on-screen dynamic was the only thing, in my opinion, that saved this episode from being a total disaster for me.
I did like the thing where Loki had to keep going through the same scene over and over.
Yeah.
And he's just like, crap. Like, and he's like, "Dylan, do you really think you'll always be alone?" And so I thought that was good.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, I just, like I said, I'm starting to wonder, like, maybe these shows aren't a great idea.
I don't know. I mean, I still like having Marvel content. I will say 100% that. I'd rather.
It's going to feel a lot
would
different
you rather
here in about a week, though, when we get an actual Marvel movie.
Yeah, right. And I don't disagree there. We're going to have a week, and then we're going to go 5 more weeks, and we'll get another one. And then, we're going to start getting Marvel movies back in our lives, and I'm stoked about it.
I don't know. I just feel like maybe, whereas, and a lot of it may have to do with who's in charge of each of these shows. And it's easy, excuse me. On one hand, it's easy to compare the Marvel shows to The Mandalorian because they're both Disney properties. But on the other hand, it's not necessarily apples to apples. Mm-hmm. But whereas it's hard for me when you have an 8 show run for Mandalorian, and you have a 6 episode run for Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki. And to me, so far, both of those shows have had pacing problems. And then you have a longer show or more episode season in Mandalorian, and it does not have pacing problems. So it's just kind of like, I think a lot of that has to do with who's doing the Mandalorian.
I was going to say, I think that's just a little different on like who's actually doing but we can't have Jon Favreau do everything. Right. He is only one man.
Is he? Nerd Jesus. Hashtag Nerd Jesus. But yeah, I mean, there's still 2 episodes, and I just felt like it started off really strong. The first 2 episodes were really good, I thought.
Yeah.
And then the 3rd episode was okay, it's not bad. And then this episode just didn't do it for me at all. But that's just me. That's one man's opinion.
Sure.
So